Is there anything finer than a cup of hot coffee on a cool Wednesday morning? I don't think so. I'm Eric Kane. Welcome back to my channel. I have seen the first two episodes of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and I walked away just deeply impressed. I know. These are adapted from the appendices of the Silmarillion, and many Tolkien purists will probably find lots of lore and story issues here. They do condense the Second Age to make it palatable for TV rather than spanning, thousands of years and shuffling through a bunch of different characters as the elves live forever and humans keep dying. They've sort of condensed the story into something that can be told in one sitting, in one, I don't know. There's going to be like at least 5 seasons apparently. I don't know how that's going to work, but the first 2 episodes are excellent. They mentioned at one point, the director mentioned that this is more than TV, and it's something new, a new form entirely. And at first I thought that seems kind of cocky and arrogant, but I kind of get it now. Like the production value, the score, which is a joint effort from Howard Shore, who wrote the Lord of the Rings score, and wrote the title theme for this, and Bear McCreary, who wrote the score for Outlander and The Walking Dead and a bunch of other stuff, including video games. The score is just gorgeous. And when you combine these incredible production values with this gorgeous original score and this this vision of Middle Earth that is so different from what we've seen previously, like The Lord of the Rings takes place in an era where civilization has fallen, right? I mean, it's not a zombie apocalypse, right? But civilization has fallen. The elves have retreated to their safe havens, right? Either across the ocean or to places like Rivendell or Lothlorien. The humans are scattered and their forces vastly diminished. The hobbits live in a detached realm. The Shire is completely detached from the rest of the world. It's like the lingering utopia, essentially, where they don't know about all the conflicts in the wide world and they don't care. The dwarves have lost their old stronghold of Khazad-dûm, which has been overrun by evil and darkness, the Balrog and the orcs and all that. Roads are not safe. Towns are far and few between. Old, vast statues have crumbled into the rivers and the dirt. That is what the Lord of the Rings is, right? It is a fallen society. Magic has begun to sort of seep out of the world. The Rings of Power takes place in a golden age of peace. So we have these vibrant elven cities. Khazad-dûm has not become the deadly mines of Moria yet. It is itself a bustling dwarven stronghold, right? We see that in all its glory, peopled with dwarves, and we see a world that has been at peace for a very long time after, Morgoth's fall thousands of years earlier. Sauron has been driven away, and everyone thinks he's gone for good, or at least, just don't care anymore. He's been gone so long, it seems the threat has passed, except for Galadriel, who thinks that everyone's being stupid. And of course, she's right. So we established characters like Galadriel and Elrond are here, and I like both of them. I think maybe Elrond will be slightly more controversial than Galadriel, just because he's so different from what they're both very different, so maybe they'll both be controversial. But I see them as, younger versions. Clearly, obviously, both, especially Galadriel, is ancient already, and at this point, she's lived for thousands of years. But this is still thousands of years before we see her with Frodo and Lothlorien. So there are just a few things you just have to kind of accept. That these characters are younger and different than you remember them. That there are things that will happen to them between this story and the Lord of the Rings that change them. And change their approach. And one of these things being, obviously, the rings of power that are forged by Celebrimbor and Sauron, and the conflict that ensues. And I would say that going from this golden age of peace to this fallen society, this fallen culture, civilization, whatever, of the Lord of the Rings has had its effect on these characters. So we see them in a younger and not innocent age, because obviously Galadriel, she was part of the war against Morgoth to retrieve the Silmarils and all of that stuff. So, but still, younger, different. Galadriel's very driven. Elrond is more of a diplomat, an advisor to Gil-galad, the king. Then there's other characters like Arondir and Bronwyn. Arondir is an elf who is watching over this village in what becomes Mordor. It's the Southlands. The people there are untrustworthy. They were allies with the enemy in the past, but this, of course, is long, long ago. But they've got bad blood, basically. But Arondir has feelings for Bronwyn, who is a human. Her son, Theo, we don't really get to know him much in the first 2 episodes, but he's an interesting fella. Things are not all okay. This is, when we come into this show, we are at the end of a long peace and the beginning of something calamitous, right? So there are signs and ill portents and omens there, and then in the Southlands especially, things are really looking a little grim. So I won't spoil anything beyond that. This is just all sort of stage setting. Lots of stage setting. We also have Nori, who is a Harfoot, a young female Harfoot. Her people are like the hobbits that we know from the Lord of the Rings, but the Harfoots are nomadic. They have they're like the gypsy version of hobbits rather than the English countryside version of hobbits. They have cool little huts that they can move around. They don't stay in one place long. They hide, they scavenge. They're delightful. I loved the Harfoots. They all speak in Irish accents, which I find super charming because I love Irish people and I love Ireland. And I want to go back. Will somebody buy me a plane ticket to Ireland? I should start a GoFundMe. I have all these GoFundMe ideas, but I don't know why anyone would fund me, so... These are kind of the main characters. Galadriel also sets off on her own during these first 2 episodes and encounters some other characters. I won't get into that. And then there's a mysterious stranger who I have some thoughts about, but I'm still not sure who this stranger could be. I won't go into detail there. Just suffice to say, we do have some great elements of mystery and uncertainty, even though we know these stories. One of the great things about adaptations changing the established lore to some degree is the fact that we have some things we don't know. We have to guess at. They've tinkered with the formula. They've changed it. But even with all these changes, even with all this tinkering, I find the Rings of Power to be very much in the spirit of Tolkien. It feels very Tolkien. It feels a bit like, there is some of the aesthetic of Peter Jackson's Tolkien universe here. They definitely, even though the casting is more diverse, they definitely riff on what Jackson established. But the attention to detail, from the music to the costumes to the special effects, is all just phenomenal. The script is very good. The writing, the dialogue, the characters are well drawn. You immediately like pretty much everyone, and you root for different characters. I think you're going to root for all of these characters. I mean, except for maybe the bad guys, but Nori, Arondir. I love Doran and his wife Disa in Khazad-dûm. The friendship between Doran and Elrond is interesting, and I enjoyed it a great deal. And just there's a lot of stuff going on in these first 2 episodes. It's a little bit overwhelming, but without spoiling anything, I found it very surprisingly good. It's a surprisingly welcome return to Middle Earth, to Tolkien's work. Even though, yes, I'm still, as I said in a previous video, I'm approaching this like it is very expensive fan fiction. And it is, because they have taken these appendices and they have had to extrapolate an entire story, and they have changed the timeline, and they have changed some of the lore, and they've tinkered with this and that. So it is fan fiction, but it's good fan fiction, right? And that's what I care about most. People have made a hullabaloo and a half about the diverse casting and saying that it's woke and whatever. It's not. This is not a story that preaches any sort of political message beyond, the struggle between good and evil. Just very Tolkien-esque, right? Good and evil and faith and friendship and honor and steadfastness and courage and all those values and morals that Tolkien baked into his stories are here still. This is not some like crazy woke leftist nonsense. And my dog's freaking out in the yard is my cue to wrap this up while the getting's good. And thank you for watching. I will be recapping this. I'm going to try to recap both on here on YouTube and on my Forbes blog, and have like discuss more detail, more story details, and like what actually happened and what I thought. Because there are quibbles I have and things I didn't like quite as much. There's one goofy action scene between Galadriel and an ice troll that you'll see. I think that it just reminded me of some of the excesses of the Hobbit trilogy, but that's just one little tiny piece of these first 2 episodes, so I'm not too worried. So I'm excited to see what everyone thinks. I know a lot of people have made up their minds already. Please set your preconceptions aside and go into this with an open mind and an open heart. I was pleasantly surprised. I hope you are too. We shall see. Peace.